It's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. Despite North Korea facing a massive outbreak of COVID-19, it still remains firm on its ballistic missile and nuclear tests.
That's right. When U.S. President Joe Biden holding talks with President Yoon Suk-yeol, how will the new administration tackle the ongoing North Korea issues alongside Washington and, of course, its allies? Now, for this, we connect with Ramon Pacheco Pardo, head of Department and Professor of International Relations, Department of European and International Studies at King's College London. Good morning to you, Professor.
Good morning.
So, Professor, first and foremost, do you think Washington will now put more priority on North Korea issues after, of course, the leaders of South Korea and the United States held the talks last weekend?
I think so. I think we'll pay more attention to what is going on in North Korea, partly because we have seen in the recent summit that there is alignment in the policy of the new South Korean president with the U.S. President, Yoon Suk-yeol. So I think Washington will try to offer something in return to Seoul, and something that I think will be keen to offer is support for the policy that President Yoon will have towards North Korea. But I don't think this is going to be a top priority. I think dealing with China, trilateral cooperation between Korea, Japan, and the U.S., Korea being part of global forums, I think that's going to be more of a priority still for President Biden in the coming months and years.
And North Korea still refuses to accept any kind of help from Seoul and Washington in their fight against COVID-19. But the truth is, though, that the North Koreans do need the help, and help alone from China, that's not going to be enough. So do you think the two allies can convince Pyongyang to accept their help?
I think if the situation doesn't improve rapidly in North Korea, Pyongyang might be willing to accept the offer coming from South Korea and from the U.S. But I do think that if North Korea and the Kim Jong-un regime is able to ride out the current wave of COVID, they might be happy to simply receive the support that we know they are getting from China and not to have to ask South Korea and the U.S. For help. So I really think that it will depend on the number of cases that North Korea is going to have in the coming days, in the coming weeks. And then we'll have to see whether the politics are right for North Korea to accept the support from South Korea and the U.S.
I mean, certainly no telling that the numbers that are even coming out in North Korea are actual figures. And they are saying right now they're seeing a decline. And so their system that they have in place is enough. So, again, could be a propaganda move. But all that aside, I mean, there's still speculation that North Korea will conduct a seventh nuclear test in the near future. We know this holds true for a lot of the new administration that comes in. Yoon administration just kicking off. It could be another rite of passage here. How do you think Seoul and Washington will respond if indeed the seventh nuclear test does take place?
I think we would see more sanctions, bilateral sanctions, coming from South Korea and from the U.S. Clearly, Russia, China, they're not going to accept UN sanctions on North Korea. But I do think, though, that especially President Yoon, I think he doesn't want to focus too much on the North Korean issue. I think he wants to focus more on regional issues, global matters. He has said he wants to make South Korea a global pivotal state. So I think that clearly he will respond to North Korea, as I said, with more sanctions, condemnation of North Korea, of course. But I don't think he will spend that much time in dealing with Pyongyang unless there is a breakthrough, and there is a dialogue between Seoul and Pyongyang. Until then, I think he's going to take this approach of clearly responding to what North Korea does, but without making this central to his foreign policy.
And of course, this is an age-old question, but do you think the denuclearization of North Korea is a plausible idea at this point? Will the regime ever accept it? I mean, it seems that if there's one thing they learned about the ongoing Ukraine crisis, it's that having nuclear weapons is the best way to deter against enemies, or in their case, the West, as we saw with Russia.
Personally, I don't think that denuclearization is possible. I do understand why the starting point from South Korea and the U.S. has to be full denuclearization of North Korea. They cannot go into a potential negotiation process with North Korea without asking for this. But I do think that even though it is not possible, I do think that might be possible to change the behavior of North Korea. For example, there could be some sort of controls on the North Korean nuclear program. There could be a dialogue process whereby North Korea opens up economically, of course, not politically. That would make the Korean Peninsula and the region safer. So I think this is possible. I also think that it is possible to negotiate with North Korea a cease to proliferation, because North Korea continues to proliferate its technology, for example, and its expertise in the development of nuclear weapons. So there are some of the goals that can be achieved. But going back to your original question, I think that the idea that North Korea is going to denuclearize has been debunked by now, not only by Ukraine, what happened with Gaddafi, of course, what happened with Saddam Hussein in the past. There are many examples that North Korea has as to why it should keep its nuclear weapons program.
Just very quickly, Professor, we found out through Victor Cha that there is some speculation that North Korea might be conducting some kind of provocation, whether it be a missile or nuclear testing over the U.S. Memorial Day holiday. How likely do you see this happening?
They've done it in the past. So this wouldn't be new. They have taken advantage of a celebration in a holiday to draw the attention of the U.S. president by conducting a test. So we cannot say that this is not a possibility. It clearly is a possibility. We know that North Korea is preparing for a missile test and potentially for a nuclear test, and they can decide to conduct the test really at any point. So this could potentially happen.
Well, thank you very much for your insights today, and we're looking forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.